how are you doing? Right, I'm going to teach you how to make a zip pouch. So these are really versatile pouches, can be used for absolutely anything. I love them, I put all sorts in them. Even my husband has loads of them that he didn't really ask for, but he's got. So these are the ingredients that you're going to need, and these come pre-cut, ready in the packs. I've got 2 lining pieces, 2 outer pieces, a contrasting zip. It needs to be longer than the material. I've got a couple of clips, some small scissors for snipping all those threads, and some larger scissors which you do need to cut over your zip later on. I have got this for measuring my inch square for my box corners, but a ruler or anything that you can basically measure an inch will do. And I've also got a quick unpick, absolutely essential tool. It's my favourite tool. So these are all the ingredients that you need. Let's get started. So I'm at my machine. We're going to get started in just a moment, but let me just explain a few handy tips that will make your life so much easier. Firstly, I've got a mat under my machine. It prevents a lot of noise and a lot of movement as well. I will do a tutorial and a separate pack so that you can make your own mat as well. Now, really important, I've got my thread here. We're going with Gutterman, and I've already wound the spool which I've put into my spool holder. Handy tip, wind a second spool. Before you thread it all through, wind a second spool. Just put it to one side. Doesn't matter if you don't use it, it's there for another time. There's nothing worse when you're part way through a project than your spool running out. You have to unthread your machine and wind a spool and then rethread it again. It's time consuming, it's annoying. So I always wind a second spool to make sure that I've got enough. Okay, so let's get started. This is exciting. So what I'm starting off with is just 1 lining piece, 1 main piece, my zip, and 3 clips. That's simple. So what I'm going to do first is place my lining piece right face up, and I'm going to pop my zip on top, right across the top edge, the long edge, and I'm going to make sure it matches the edge, and that it doesn't matter if it's not totally central as long as your ends come off the edge, because they're going to be hidden ends. So I'll pop that on. I'm going to take my main fabric, which is these lovely cute cats, and I'm going to put that face down on top. Really important that you're very accurate with this part. Make sure that your corners and your edges are matching. If it's not perfect, it will be within your seam allowance, so don't worry about it too much. So as you can see here, that is matched up. So I'm going to pop a clip in the beginning, move that down a little bit, and pop a clip in the middle and the end. So just lift it up or go around the other side if you need to, but just make sure it's straight, because you need all these layers to be caught together to attach your zip. There we go. So we have lining piece, right sides up, main piece facing down with the zip in the middle like a little sandwich. So I've got all the pieces fastened together. I'm now going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to get ready to stitch down the zip. Okay, so at this point, you might, if you've got a zipper foot, you'll want to change to a zipper foot. As you can see, I've left my regular foot on because my machine is quite technical. So what I'm going to do is a little hack. So if you have a more modern machine, you can do this. So I'm going to reduce this stitch width right the way down to 0. Now as you can see down here, it has moved my needle right across to the left. So I'm going to just make sure that it's butted up against the edge of the zip, and I can actually sew like this without changing to my zipper foot. But if you haven't got this hack, if you haven't got this way, just put a zipper foot on, because it will just help to guide you. Okay, let's stitch this together. So take your time, it doesn't have to be a rush, just to make sure that you get it all right, and just remove your clips as you're going along. Just keep guiding it, you can feel where it is. You don't want to sew over the zip, because then you won't be able to open and close it. So just guiding it along. I'm going to take this clip out now and just hold on to the material, guide it along. And don't forget to do your back stitch. Just 3 little back stitches just to make sure it's secure. And then that's my automatic thread cutter. I do love that feature. And there we go. Okay, so this is what we've got. As you can see, we have stitched neatly along the zip. Don't worry if there's any extra little bits, it will all be in your seam allowance. So open it up, this is what we're looking like. Isn't that pretty? Look at that, it's lovely. So what I like to do at this point, and it's not essential, I just find it's easier, is open it up, and I just like to press along here just to keep the material away from the zip edge. So let me just take it to my ironing mat and we'll give that a quick press now. This is a fantastic little iron, and this is a Prim iron, and it gets, when you're making bags and makeup bags and just little things, it gets right in there. But you can also leave it switched on all the time. I'll put a link to it in my comments below later on, but it's absolutely fantastic and gets very, very hot. So there we go. So as you can see, I've now pressed it all the way along, so it's got a very flat edge. It's really important because it makes it look really beautiful, and when you top stitch it then it's easy to do. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to just fold that behind like that, turn it over, and I'm just going to press the lining away from the edge as well, away from the zip edge as well, just because it tends to like to ride up. It's like a naughty child. So I'm just going to just give that a quick press. Do be careful if you are using anything other than a nylon zip. You know, if you're using any sort of funny material zips, just test it first to make sure your iron doesn't stick. I've tested it on these and it's okay, so we're all good. So there you go, that's how it's looking, nice and neat. Okay, so let's start putting this together. This is going to be the second part. So we have our second piece of lining, right sides up. We're going to take the part that we've just made, as you can see there. That's the part we've just attached, and we're going to put this on top of the lining. So the lining is right face up, don't forget, but I'll show you the layers in a moment. It's important to try and just make sure that all the edges are lined up. You will get some overhang, so don't worry about it. Once that's measured up, lined up, I'm going to take my second piece of outer fabric. How lovely is that? So cute. And I'm going to pop that on top, but face down. I'm just going to spin it around a little bit just to see if I can check the edges. Yep, so the edges are fine there. I'm going to pop a clip in there. And I'm just going to just adjust that slightly, coming over the edge, and I'm going to pop a clip in the end. If I can get all the layers. And one in the middle, just to hold it. And then I'm going to take it to my machine and I'm going to stitch down here. Okay, so we're all clipped in place. I'm going to take it to my machine and we're going to sew down the edge to attach the next two layers. So I'm going to I've already adjusted my needle, as I said earlier. I'm going to pop my foot down, it's nestled against the edge of the zip, and I'm going to start. So I can take that clip out now because I have it secure. And I'm just going to start just a regular stitch for this, a straight stitch. Mine's 2.4, and take your time, you don't have to rush it, it's not a marathon. Just make sure that you're guiding it through and that you're not going on the zip. It's the little things, because this is the thing that's going to be showing the most when you've made your pouch. There we go. And don't forget to do your little back stitch as well. 3 steps back. Just strengthens it. My automatic cutter, and we're done. So this is how it's looking now. So we've got a stitch there where we've attached the second pieces, and as you can see on this side we've got the stitch there from previously. So let me just show you where we're up to so you know that you've done it right. So we'll start from the bottom. So at the bottom I've got lining fabric right face up, lining fabric right face down. We have main fabric right side up and main fabric right side down with the zip in between them all. So that's how you should be looking. If you've not got it like that, rewind, have another look. I'm going to open it up and press it now. Okay, so now I'm going to press each side open. So I'm just going to open it up like so. So this is how it should look. You've got your top sides, and if I flip it over, so you should be matching both sides. So what I'm going to do is take it to my iron. I'm going to move that out of the way. Really important that you make sure that your lining is pulled out as well. So just make sure it's all flat, that it's all meeting at the ends and that it's not bunched up. So just push it out and then just pop your iron on and give it a press. This makes it lovely for when you want to top stitch it, and it also helps to stop the lining from getting caught up in any further stitching. So just running the iron over like that and flipping it over. It doesn't necessarily need it, but I'm a little OCD with it and I like to just make sure that I'm just checking. So it's just to pull it away from the zip middle. And there we have it. Look at that. How lovely is that? All straight. Okay, so we're nicely pressed. Now we're going to top stitch down the edges here. Now I just choose a straight stitch, but this is your project, so if you want a fancy stitch, a curly stitch, a zigzag, it's entirely up to you. It just makes it look really beautiful along the edges and very neat and professional. Let's take it to the machine. Okay, so I'm at my machine now. I've left my needle where it was on the left because I can guide it. Now my stitch length is normally 2.4, but for top stitching I find that a longer stitch length looks better, so I'm going to change my stitch length to 2.8. No, I'm going to go to 3 actually. We're going to just see how that looks. It's entirely up to you how you do it though. So again, take your time. It doesn't have to be fast. I'm using the edge of my foot as the guide to keep my stitches even. And I'm just slightly pulling the material away from each other as I'm doing it. I'm not pulling it hard because I don't want to break my needle. It's just to make sure that the layers are where they need to be. Just keeping that foot right at the edge of my material. Don't need to backstitch on this because this is purely decorative. That's one side done. I'm going to flip it around now. And also, if you don't want any nasty nests building up at the end, little tip is to pull your thread out of the back and just hold on to it until you've set off, and then it doesn't all bundle up. So I've lined up with the edge again and off we go. I'm pulling my fabric apart ever so slightly just to try to keep it straight. If you feel like you're going off a little bit, just slow down, stop. It's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to affect the stitching. It's just better to have it straight than rushed. And there we go, coming to the end. My automatic cutter, which I absolutely love. And there we have it. So here we have 2 beautiful lines of top stitching. Now then, let's start making this into the shape that it needs to be. Really important at this point, please, please, please do not forget, because you will not be able to do anything with your bag. You need to open your zip. Don't forget, write it in big red letters if you have to, put an alarm on or whatever, but open your zip. If you don't open your zip, you'll cry. Anyway, so the zip's open. I go about 3/4. Don't open it past the edge of the material, so I go about 3/4 at this point. And what I need to be doing now is getting my 2 main pieces, if I can get hold of them. So I've got my 2 main pieces, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those together, making sure that the corners are matched up, and then I'm going to pop a clip in that corner there, and I'm going to pop a clip in this corner here, and then do the same for the lining. Just pull it flat, make sure your corners match up, pop a clip in each side, and then what we need to be doing with the zip is the zip needs to face, so it needs to be pointing towards the lining. So as you can see here, I've got the 2 strips because it's open, but it's pointing, let me just push that through, it's pointing towards the lining, okay, like that. So the edges, the zip edges pointing towards the lining, really important, and then just pop a clip in just to hold it there until you've stitched it. So let's just pop that clip in. it will become clear. It seems like a bit of a random thing to do, but it will become clear. So I'm just going to push the edge of this one towards the lining there. So as you can see, I've bent the zip in half as much as I can, and I've pushed it towards the lining, and I'm just going to pop a clip in. Little fiddler here, but it will be worth it because your zip and everything will be the right way afterwards. There we have it. So this is how it's looking now it's all been clipped. So you've got your 2 clips at the bottom lining, your 2 clips holding your zip into place, and your 2 clips at the top. What I'm going to do now is take it to my machine, and I always start on the left hand corner of the main fabric. So I'm just going to not top stitch, I'm just going to stitch across the edge here. So I usually use a 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam allowance. It's entirely up to you. These bags don't have to be a particular size, so it is entirely up to you. So I'm going to stitch all the way along there, all the way down here. Go very slowly when you're going over your zip. You can sew over your zip because it is nylon, but be careful because you don't want to break your needle, so just take it slowly. And then I'm going to go all the way down, and I'm going to go across to around here, and then just do a back stitch there. I'm going to leave this gap here. Don't sew it, that's your turning gap. It's got to be about the size of your hand so you can get your hand through. And then I'm going to start from around here, do 3 back stitches, go along all the way up, again watch your needle, and then right the way back to where you started. Okay, so I've brought it to my machine. I've gone back to my, no I haven't, I'm going to now, I've gone back to my 2.4 length stitch because it just makes it a little stronger when it's smaller. Okay, so we're going to sew around, here we go. Now this one, you can go a little faster. Still guide it because you want it within your 1/2 inch seam allowance, but it doesn't matter if it's not quite straight. None of this will be shown. So I'll get to the end, and I get to within a 1/2 inch at the end, and then leave my needle down, foot up, twist it round, drop my foot, and then you don't have to take your needle off or start again. So I'm approaching the zip now, so I've gone as far as I can. I'm just going to take that clip out, straighten it all up. Again, don't worry if it's not quite straight. And here I am up to the zip, and what I'm going to do is just go very slowly over the zip because I don't want to stress it. So you can hear the difference there. And my threads broke. So here we are back again. I've just had to rethread my needle. It does happen sometimes if there's even a little bit of pressure on your needle, your thread can come out. So happens to the best of us. So I'm over the zip now. I've still got to do the other side of the zip, so hopefully it won't happen again. It doesn't always happen, just very rarely. So I'm going down to the bottom within about 1/2 inch, and again lift your foot up, spin your material round, and I can take that clip out now. And I'm going to go just across slightly, just to there, and I'm going to back stitch. And cut the thread. So don't forget I'm leaving this gap empty, undone, ready for turning. And I'm going to go about here. I'm going to do 3 stitches and then 3 back. Just to strengthen, because you're going to be putting your hand in there and pulling the material through, so you want it to be a bit stronger, you don't want it all to come undone. So I'm going right to the end here, needle down, foot up, spin it round, and away we go. I'm going to go fairly fast down here. I'm already going to take my clip out of the zip because I've got hold of it now. And I'm going to move gently. So here we are approaching the zip, so I'm going to go very slowly. Just because I'm just using a regular universal needle here. I'm not using any thick needles or anything. There you go, so it's gone over and it's behaving itself. And I'm just going to go all the way down and should be back to where we started. And there we have it. So we've trimmed the edges now. As you can see, there's a lot less bulk there. What I'm going to do now is box the edges, box the corners. So I'm just going to put my hand inside and get one of the corners. Now go right to the point as far as you can, and what you want to do is try to match both seams. So you've got the bottom seam and the top seam. So just grab it where you think it is, and then you can just peek through and have a look. Now I'm a little bit off there, so I'm just going to roll this across and grip it there, and I'm just going to peek in and make sure that my seams are together. So I'm quite happy that my seams are together there. So what I'm going to do is use the edge of my table. I'm going to lie that flat, and then you need to be around about an inch, just under an inch I would say. So I use this just to get as a guidance. So I'm an inch from the point there. I'm just going to move it across and just make a line, or a part line with my pencil. And then you can clip it if you want, but I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew right the way across. Now before I sew across, really important point, make sure that your seams go in opposite directions. So I'm going to push my top seam across that way. So my top seam is going that way and my bottom seam is going that way, but I've not let go of where it is. I'm going to take it to the machine. So I've done all 4 edges of the corners now, they're all boxed, and you can see it's starting to take shape. Isn't it exciting? So I've cut them all off, as you can see. We've still got our turning gap here. So what we're going to do now is put your hand right the way through. This is why you've got the zip open. Just grab the bottom and just gently pull it through. I say gently because don't forget you've got your stitch in there, which is why you did your 3 stitches on your turning point. So I'm just going to push it through gently and then just open the zip up. So this bit's fiddly, but how precise you are with this will decide how lovely your bag looks. So just push up here to make sure that you get the end of the zip pushed right up. So don't forget it is hidden, so you've not got a metal part, but just make sure that it's pushed up as much as possible, otherwise it'll just be bulky and look silly. And then just push your corners out. And this is where I get excited because I love tools. So I'm just making sure it's all the right way. I'm keeping my lining out, as you can see. Right, so all the corners are pushed out, but I have a pokey tool. It does have lots of names and I will post a link below, but I call it a pokey tool because I'm just strange like that. So just be gentle with it, don't press too hard because your material is quite thin. So just push the ends just to make sure that your corners are sharp there. Let's do that for all 4 corners on the line, on the main. Can you see the difference there? Poke that through, look at that. See, that's made it a little more prominent. And then also just do the same on your lining. Just make sure it's all pushed through. It just makes it easier and makes it sit nicer once you pop it all back inside. So just poking them all through. There you go. I've made sure my zip's out, and that is where we're at now. So I'm going to sew this part. Right, let's carry on. So we've poked all our corners out. Now what we're going to do is sew the turning gap. So this is just a little tip. So pop your fingers in and just pull it wide, and you'll see it naturally just turns in. Just get a grip of those, of the turned in parts, and just hold it together like that. You can press it if you want, you can clip it if you want, or you can just hold it. Now what I do, I make a feature of this by stitching right the way across, but if you like hand sewing and you want to do a ladder stitch so it's not visible, that's entirely up to you. For this I'm going to stitch it right the way across. I'm going to take it to my machine, still holding it tight, and I'm going to just put my needle right to the edge, make sure that it's going to catch the top and the bottom there, so make sure it's lined up neatly, and I'm just going to stitch across here. Again, take your time, you don't have to rush, it's not a massive seam. The closer to the edge you get it, the less visible it will be, and I've kept my thread the same colour as well, so it's not too bad. And then when I get to the end, I'm just going to go a little further than I need to, just to make sure it goes all the way across. My automatic thread cutter, take it out, and I'm just going to trim these little threads here, because this will be visible. This is going to be at the bottom of your bag, so it's important to just trim them a little bit there, and a little bit there. And there we have the trimmed bag. So we're beautifully sewn across the top of the lining gap. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to push the lining inside. So there's no great technique to this, but what I find is just roll it in and then get your hands in. Get your hands in with your fingers like that. So fingers like that. And then, as you can see, it's all gone in very neatly. All your seams are very neat. There's nothing sticking up towards the zip. This is your outer, all pushed in. And then I'm just going to close the zip. And there you have your completed bag. Didn't you do well?